Ain't no half stepping, Marcus J. Thank you so much for staying with us. Had a little bit of technical difficulties that we're working through. Unfortunately, sounds like there's a little bit of construction going on next door to us. We're just going to have to work around it. We appreciate everybody. Hopefully that's not too disturbing for you guys, and I'll definitely try to make sure that we do something about that. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. We are going to move into our socially conscious and entertainment hour at this time. The first thing I want to do is profile our sponsor, the Doctor of Optometry, Dr. Euphemia Huggins Williams, ODPC. She's located at 7124 Forest Hill Avenue, Suite B in Richmond, Virginia, 23225. Phone number 804-327-1640. This is where I get all of my eyeglasses from, folks. So definitely check her out. This is someone who has a great selection of eyewear. Should definitely take care of you. Make sure that if you have any issues with cataracts, stigmatism, glaucoma, anything like that, she can definitely hook you up. So definitely check out the Doctor of Optometry. Next, we want to get into our missing and or exploited child, as we do every single week. And this week, of course, is no different. We've got Zieria Chestnut, who is missing from Manassas, Virginia. She's been missing since April 13, 2013. She's 5'7", with brown eyes, brown hair. She's a black female, once again 5'7", 150 pounds. She was last seen April 13th. She's got a tattoo on her hip, and she may be riding in a white Maxima. If you've seen Zieria Chestnut, please contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at their phone number 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. As you remember from the news of the rescue in Cleveland last week, which we'll definitely talk about later on in the show, but you can see that these people do sometimes come home. So it's with diligence, it's definitely with people keeping their eyes out and working together that these people do occasionally come home. So definitely keep your eyes out for Zieria Chestnut and any of the missing and or exploited children that we've ever profiled here on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. or anywhere else. Take a look at missingkids.com and just keep your eyes open, because these people do occasionally come home. So Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. What I want to do now is just kind of go through our introductions. We had someone join us here in the studio, and definitely happy and proud to introduce, joining us for her monthly spot on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. We got Miss Tony joining us. What's going on, girl?
Hello, how y'all doing?
We're doing fabulous. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here with us. We also have K-Dub still joining us on the live line. Bro, you still with us, man?
Yes, sir.
All right, and of course, JR is still with us. So this is the crew that you got for the rest of the night. And we got some what the hells, y'all. And we got a lot. So just kind of hang in there with us tonight. You know, a couple of real fun ones. And then we'll get into some of the more serious, ones. This first story is the absolute essence for why we do what the hell. This story made me say, come on, y'all, for real. Actually, it didn't make me say what the hell. It made me say, what the the other what the. All right? And that's exactly what the byline of this story says. It says, WTF. Man pawns wedding band for $20 to pay prostitute. K-Dub. This dude. Hey, Dub, this dude down in Greenwood, South Carolina, was approached by an officer in a drug and prostitute-ridden community last week. 33 years old, Marvin Holmes II, was parked on a dead-end street with 41-year-old Rhonda Kelly, a known prostitute among the officers, sitting in his car seat. Of course, he, cooperated with the police, but the thing was, when they got finished doing whatever it was that they was doing, he came up a little bit short. And so he didn't want no trouble with his prostitute, and the only thing of value on him was his wedding ring, and so he had to get that money. So he went and pawned the wedding ring. Dub, I'm gonna come to you on this one first, bro. What's your thoughts, man?
Man, he a straight donkey, dog. Come on, man. You mean to tell me, first of all, you're gonna pawn your ring for $20? Just $20? Just $20. Just $20. And secondly, bruh, I mean, I'm not. If you knew how much it was beforehand. So you're gonna go into this transaction knowing you were dumb short, and you're gonna try to get over on the girl. And I guess what, she was in a situation where she might call the cops or something.
I don't know. I mean, we've seen situations where people.
Boy, listen, man. She, man. Listen, I'm gonna keep that. Man, come on, man. You's a fool.
Yeah, we've seen people.
And you know what? I hope your boys saw you in the paper. I saw everybody that know you saw you in the paper. So when they see you, they can just smack you upside your head and be like, "You's a dumbass."
Tony, what's your thoughts? You got homeboy paying the hoe off with the $20 he got from the pawn shop, okay. And I feel comfortable calling her hoe because that's what she is. She's a hoe.
My understanding was that he actually pawned the ring first when she asked him if he had any money. That's what.
Is that how it went? Maybe I got the sequence backwards.
But then with the $20, they went and she bought some crack. So from there, he was ready to get busy after she got high. And apparently she was acting kind of crazy, maybe crackish. And somehow the police intervened, and they were both arrested. I will never understand why a man would want to be with. First of all, you're married. Despite whatever marital problems you're having, you don't go outside of your marriage. First of all. Second of all, a dirty crackhead prostitute. A dirty crack hoe, because that's what she is. She's hideous. She's not even like a fine hoe. Like, she looks like a dirty crackhead.
Yeah, we looking at the picture right now. Dub, if you.
No, there's pictures.
Dub, yes. go on my.
Do look like somebody I know.
Yeah.
This makes it even worse.
Dub, go on my page, Dub, and scroll down a little bit, and you'll see it. And she look a hot mess. Like, she look a hot mess.
Like cracko.
She look like a cracko. It is what it is. It's pretty bad. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Next story I want to get into. Normally the what the hell stories that we do are stories locally, but this one I had to go all the way to South Africa for.
Wow.
A Christian school tells a lesbian couple to divorce or your son will be expelled. Apparently the school told Samantha and Kelly Mabe, they're married parents of a 5-year-old boy, that he's going to face expulsion if they don't get divorced. The pastor of the school claims that they never indicated their sexual orientation and that them being gay was causing problems. He also said that if they didn't split up or remove the child from the school, that they would consider legal action against them. Tony, what's your thoughts when you hear this one?
Very ironic that this one comes up. I actually had a very aggressive interaction with one of my Facebook friends, I'll say, about someone posted something about they didn't feel that gay marriage should be legalized because that would cause a decrease in the amount of children that were born in America, and our population would die out, and something to that effect. And of course I just had to chime in with, first of all, they were basically condemning homosexuals for their lifestyle and saying that they should kind of be forced to marry a heterosexual person and live as such in order to help their fellow Americans out. We got into a pretty heated debate. Actually, someone else jumped in. We got into a pretty heated debate back and forth, and they just basically, like so many other people, and I'll just say Christians. I'm a Christian too, but trying to force their beliefs on someone else. So my thing is, if you have two loving parents, it doesn't matter if they're homosexual, if they're straight, if they are great parents, they have a great relationship, they have a wonderful family, they're able to provide for that child financially. It doesn't matter if they're straight or gay. Let that family be a family. And if it's not affecting the child negatively, what does that have to do with the school? Who is it affecting? First of all, the article didn't really say that.
But because you're right, it didn't. And I'd be curious to know what the pastor's thoughts are on that, JR. When you hear a story like that, what do you think, man?
Well, I'm definitely going. In this situation, I'm going to say what you alluded to in the baseball story earlier. I would tell my fellow Christians in this instance, suave, chill out, because as a Christian person, I'm always conflicted with this because, according to my belief system, it's an abomination, and I wholeheartedly believe that. Under the same token, you're denying a child an education. If you as a Christian school are concerned with certain values, then this family is placing your kid in your care. Now, you can choose to look at it as, from a Christian perspective, maybe God is sending this kid to you for a reason. To deny this kid because of what the parents are doing in this situation is totally wrong. Like, you definitely need to build up the children, and to me that's just, what the hell?
K-Dub, what's your thoughts, man? You got the school in South Africa, the Christian school. They want to put the 5-year-old out because he has 2 female gay parents. What's your thoughts on it, bro?
I have a lot of different thoughts. One, I agree with pretty much everybody in the room. It doesn't affect me. But you know what I definitely want to put out there first and foremost, and we have to understand this as a community, as Americans, is that, granted, we may have an opinion about something, but the way that other countries handle their issues is none of our business. Regardless of how we feel or how we think we should, I say social issues such as that are none of our business. So the only thing we can do is have an opinion, but I say that to say that, just like, everybody else said, it's kind of idiotic to have this way of thinking. I think that as humanity, we've kind of, I hope that we've kind of evolved, but we still have those small, in comparison, those small amounts of people that are not necessarily open to change or willing to change with the way of the times. It's very unfortunate because at the end of the day, guess who's losing out? The kid.
The kid is, yeah.
At the end of the day, he's the one that's losing out. We do have to understand that this being a private school, there are certain rules that we may or may not agree with, and it would be interesting to find out whether or not how early were these things said in the process is because of the fact that I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to see how it's investigated. But again, the only person that loses out in this is the child, and that's what I feel sorry for. Because I'm quite sure that he has loving parents.
And I agree with you on that. And here's my thing on it. I mean, kind of piggybacking on the last comment that you made, when they showed up at school, I'm pretty sure they came together because most couples show up together when it's time to take the kid to school. I know that when it was time to take Mama J to school, me and Mrs. J went together. That's just kind of how it is. So I'd also like to know if it's written in the bylaws of the school, with regards to what the parents' obligations are. Does it say anything about how the family should be formulated? Now, I know from my own personal experience in putting Mama J in school that there are certain private schools that have certain doctrines. There's certain private schools, Christian schools, right here in the Richmond, Virginia area that dictate that you're a member of a Christian church. And if you're not a member of a Christian church, your child can't come here. You know what I mean? So I know that there's certain things that you have to do with regards to requirements. So oddly enough, if it's something that's in their doctrine that says they can do this, then I guess I somewhat have to side with the school with regards to it, because you knew coming in that this could have happened. That's with regards to legalities. With regards to morality, I think it's bull, for real. How you going to tell somebody how to run their family? And because I'm not governed by Christian doctrine, because I'm not a Christian person, I'm still a spiritual man. I'm still a man who understands that there's only one. And I can't imagine that only one would be okay with one of his representatives who is tasked with educating the youth, telling the youth, you can't come here no more because I don't like your parents. I don't like how your parents roll, so you can't come here. We can't teach you no more, Tony. I have a hard time with that.
And honestly, the first thing that came to mind when I read that article was hypocrisy. How dare they discriminate against this, this homosexual, this lesbian couple, when, I mean, they're in Africa, for crying out loud. You know, all the racism that we've endured forever. And for them to, you know, single them out because of their sexuality, like, just the hypocrisy just blows my mind. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's hypocrisy all over. You know, this was one that jumped out at me. You know, this story, I'm guessing because it was, you know, on the other side of the world in a lot of respects in South Africa. I'm not sure what the, you know, the end result is, if they're in the process of going through some sort of I don't know, some sort of tribunal where they're trying to determine what's going to happen. You know, I'm guessing, and I don't know, but I'm guessing that women ain't going to get divorced. So maybe they need to take the kid out of school because, you know, you don't want to get sued either. But then again, this might be one of them situations where you might need to take a stand. Now, I don't know enough about South Africa to know how the legalities work and if they would have a leg to stand on, if they would get any kind of support from the community that would help them. I know if that joint happened here in Virginia or somewhere in the United States, they would get enough support where that kid would stay in that school if that parent wanted him to, particularly with the strength and the momentum that the homosexual community is gaining in present day.
I would say our conversation off the air earlier when I told you that, you know, to me, we all stand before the Creator when it's all said and done. I would not want to be the headmaster of that school or the person who makes admissions decisions when it comes time for that child, whomever he or she is, to make a decision on what their faith is or isn't, and they base it on the fact that they couldn't go to a good school because of that person. Because I wouldn't want to be that person.
Because it's going to be synonymous with Christian doctrine. And I think a lot of people who make their steps away from religion is because they saw certain things that they had issues with in the religion that they came up in. I was raised a Christian. I went to Catholic schools. I went to Lutheran school. And that was, aside from me, you know, doing my own studies and seeing other things, that was part of it for me. So I agree with you, J.R. Tony, you wanted to make a point?
Now, when you brought up, you know that here, if that happened here in the U.S., they would have, a huge support system. But actually, in Africa, South Africa, there was a documentary on, I think it was on HBO or Showtime a couple of years ago, about just mind-boggling amount of lesbian women who were being raped by soldiers in Africa because everyone was so against it, and they would, pretty much, the lesbian women would form these communities and have like these safe houses for each other because, I mean, the rate of rape was it was through the roof, and the government wasn't doing anything about it because, of course, as the judges that they are of who is morally right and wrong, they decided that they were wrong, and if they're being raped, so what? They're bringing it on themselves.
Yeah, and that whole thing is crazy. I guess, we would be better suited if we were all more intimately involved with regards to what goes on in Africa and understanding what goes on there. But I could tell you here, I could tell you my opinion is, here, I really, depending on what state you're in, I guess we could say that, depending on what state you're in, I think that this kind of situation, I think that couple would have some support. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. I want to move on to another story. I'm going to come to you on this one first, Dub. The Boston Marathon bomber, Tamerlane Tsarnaev, I believe is his name. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce that. But this gentleman was the older brother of the young guy that's still in captive. He's the one that got killed by the police. And of course, we know that there had been some difficulties from his family trying to have some place to bury him at the, once they were able to claim his body. And then the news cycle got a little bit quiet for a couple of days. And then when the news cycle started back up again, we find out that he was buried right here in good old Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, about 20 minutes north of us here in Richmond, up in Doswell. And for those folks who are not familiar with Doswell, Virginia, they're most known by having the King's Dominion park that's there. So I'm gonna hold my comment to the last on this one, Dom. I'm gonna come to you first, and let me just I just laid it out, so let me kind of bring it to you in more question form. If they decided that they were moving that body from Boston to the area that you live in, 20 minutes from you, whatever city was 20 minutes from you, where you live, would you have an issue with it? And if so, why or why not?
Wouldn't even care, to be totally honest with you. I mean, look, man, let's look at it like this, look, the body had to be buried somewhere. Obviously, his family didn't have enough pull, clout, money, whatever, to have him buried where they are, or whether even they wanted to even transport the body back home or what have you. The man had to be buried somewhere. We couldn't bury him at sea. I mean, I believe, from what I understand, it was a privately owned entombment, I believe, and somebody just gave it up, or they offered it or what have you. It was a done deal. I wouldn't necessarily have a problem. I really could care less. I mean, let's think about all the other people that have done far more worse and that are buried with our loved ones or buried in cities that we reside in or what have you. Nobody has a problem with that. I think that it's a non-issue personally. Such as we've seen with the rescue of the 3 girls in Cleveland or what have you, you'll understand that it's a part of, just like you said, the news cycle. You see, we jump from one thing to another. Within a 24-hour period, we weren't even talking about the Boston situation or what have you. So I personally, I think that it's a non-story. Anybody that's all up in arms about it, you can have your opinion, but after about 24 hours, I would say get over it. Personally.
In this situation, I honestly don't care where he's buried. If they wanted to bury him in Arlington, bury him in Doswell, bury him in Boston, wherever, just bury him, get him off my TV. To me personally, this guy was a terrorist. He committed terrorist acts. To me, letting this be an issue and letting this be a media-driven issue is lending more ammunition to the opposing side of this. You're giving more TV time to their cause. There are people out there who, although they may not share his beliefs, they may not necessarily share the American value system, even though they live in America either. So you're giving airtime to it, and I just wouldn't do it. Bury him, get it over with, cremate him, throw him in the ocean, do whatever, make him shark food. I don't care.
Just get him off my TV. Tony, what's your thoughts on it?
Totally agree. I really couldn't care less. And like K-Dub said, they had to bury him somewhere. Did we hear anything about Timothy McVeigh being anywhere,
No.
where they buried him, or Jeffrey Dahmer, or any of the serial killers? Who cares? He's dead. Let it go.
Yeah.
Move on.
I think, for me, there's always a bigger picture. And I think the bigger picture in this particular situation was they're attaching the Islamic faith to it, and I think that's the reason why it's such a big deal, because when you think about historically the people who had done some terrible things, and there was a story that was done in the local news station here just about what you just said about how people got to get buried somewhere. Jeffrey Dahmer had to get buried. Timothy McVeigh, who was a terrorist. He was a terrorist. Absolutely. He was a white American male terrorist, and homegrown, and people oftentimes have issues with keeping it real with regards to that. Anytime you can attach the Islamic faith to anything negative in this country, it's going to get even more shine than it would normally, because the people who blew up 9/11, they were Muslim. And that was the linchpin for all of this. But you know what? Sungwoo Cho, who shot up, Virginia Tech, he wasn't Muslim. And I don't think anybody even thought about where he was buried once he killed himself. You know what I'm saying? Where's Ted Bundy buried?
Have no idea.
I saw a story, and I can tell you, where John Wayne Gacy is buried? He's buried in the neighborhood cemetery where some of the kids that he killed are buried. He buried with them, and nobody said nothing. You know what I'm saying? So what's the difference between Tamerlane Tsarnaev? The fact that he is a Muslim man who committed a terrorist act on American soil. That's the difference. And I think we need to get away from it, because, Muslims have done some terrible things in this country, but they've done some great things in this country. Christians have done some terrible things in this country, and they've done some great things in this country. And I think when people get over that kind of thing, then I think we'll be able to kind of meet each other on a more even plane and just get over yourself, like for real. Dub, take the last word on this one, man.
I agree, man. I think that people need to just calm down. You're just angry for the fact of being angry. And just trying to find fault or trying to. I mean, come on, knock it off, man. It's no big deal. It's not a big thing. I think that what we need to do as a society is start to inject that into our media and try to get to them and understand, like, look, I don't give a damn where he's buried at. Tell me the story and keep it moving.
I got you. Ain't no how Steppin, Marcus J. Loud from the Dan Legacy Internet Radio.com. We're on Mixlr, Loud City. We're on your Winamp, Shoutcast, on your mobile phones. Hopefully, it's a lot of you guys listening mobile, which is the reason why you haven't called us at 804-402-2893, because you're on your phone. But we do appreciate you listening, and we appreciate the love that we get. Dub, I'm coming to you first on this one. The grandson of Malcom X, El-Haj Malik Al-Shabazz, was murdered in Mexico last week. El-Haj Malcolm Al-Shabazz was his given name. Malcolm Shabazz is the name that he went by. And his history is well documented. He set the fire that killed his grandmother, Sister Betty Shabazz. He had legal issues, spent several years in prison for armed robbery, things of that sort. I figured I'd go ahead and get that out of the way and kind of put it out there because the mainstream media did it. It's part of his biography, and just because of who his grandfather was, I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice by not putting out his complete biography. However, this is also someone who in the process of the last few weeks, few months and years, was in the process of getting his life together. He was doing a lot of speaking engagements, speaking about how the things that he was doing in the early stages of his life were a detriment to him as well as to the legacy of the family that he comes from, and he was trying to make a better way for himself. He had some concerns about him being watched by the CIA because I guess the amount of scrutiny, well, not scrutiny, but the amount of attention that some of his activities had been getting. And there's some rumors, and everything is a rumor until it's corroborated, but there have been some rumors that he was actually lured to Mexico for the purpose of his murder. And he got into allegedly a bar fight with a couple of guys, and that's when he died. There were two waiters from that restaurant that were arrested today in his murder. But when you think about the grandson of Malcom X, Dub, why don't you give us just whatever thoughts you had when the news broke on Thursday of his passing?
It was just something that I took notice of. I was familiar with the situation with him going away for some time in regards to the death of his grandmother. I think that, you can look at it two ways, man. You think about the amount of, negative publicity or the negative things that he did early in his life. You could look at it as it being a situation of it kind of came full circle back to him. Now, me saying that, I'll also say this, that I would definitely not rule out foul play. From what I understand, some of his family members said that they have suspicions of foul play, and I would definitely not be, if it comes out, whether sooner or later, that this was some type of situation where he was set up, I wouldn't be surprised. We've definitely known a lot of, or better yet, I should say, we've heard of a lot of different situations where individuals were set up because of either what they knew, who they knew, or just basically getting a player out of the game. I definitely feel bad for the family. They've dealt with a lot of different types of death, from Malcom X to Miss Betty Shabazz to, a number of different other individuals. It's just a sad situation when you see a family and you can kind of see the tree branches of, tragic deaths or what have you. So you want to pray for the family or what have you. But again, I'm not a above thinking that it could be something suspicious.
And the first thing I thought about, let me stop you there, Dub. The first thing I thought about was, you know, what happened here? Was it some kind of foul play here? That was the first thing I thought about, you know, and the whole thing about him being in a bar and getting into a bar fight, it just sounded bogus to me. You know, I'm not sitting there pointing the finger at anybody in particular, any organization in particular, Tony, but when I think of the sole male heir to someone like Malcolm X, that to me it's just sad more than anything else, because, you know, people want to put the highlight on his life, particularly with him being responsible for his grandmother's death and him spending time in prison for armed robbery and all those kinds of things. But let's not forget that he is just a little bit older than what his grandfather was when he got out of prison, you know, after having spent, you know, half a decade or more in prison. So when you heard the story, Tony, what was your initial thought?
First of all, just sadness. You know, like K-Dub said, you know, this poor family has, you know, Malcolm X was a great man, and, you know, Sister Betty Shabazz did great things too, but just for the family to be dwindled down the way that it has is sad. And of course one can say, well, you know, he may have gotten what he deserved, you know, because of the fire incident. But, you know, you can't judge other people. My question was, reading the article, you know, he's in this like more seedy part of town, away from the more touristy areas. You know, he's lured away by this attractive woman. I'm far from a conspiracy theorist, but it does all seem kind of shady, and I think that there definitely needs to be more investigation, other than just, some American tourists were in Mexico and, you know, one of them was killed. I think it should go further than that.
A couple things. One, it just kind of a brief little look I did into his life. I mean, even going back to his childhood, I mean, he just did crazy things, and, you know, when you live like that, it catches up with you. It does. And, you know, the fact that he was trying to turn his life around is great, and I hope that is not lost on him, you know, in death. I hope some of those things, you know, are remembered by what's left of his family. I mean, because it definitely is a sad way for somebody with a name that's synonymous with civil rights and just the overall empowerment of not just black people, but people in general. You know, and I feel kind of bad for him. But under the same token, you know, when you do some of the things that he's done, you know, that life has a way of catching up with you.
You know, Steppin, Marcus J. We're going to leave it there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got some more What the Hells, y'all. We want to know what the hell was going on in New Orleans. We want to know how a kid gets suspended for having beef with the principal. And we want to know what was going on in Cleveland. Marcus J. Steppin. Hang in there. We back real quick.